Welcome aboard Rocket Ship, the platform with the most relevant content for competitive examinations. This is Rocket Ship IAS Lab, and continuing with our series on answer writing for general studies papers of civil service main examination, we take up a question that you might come across in GS paper 1. Here goes the question. The Yakshini Yaksh remains a powerful motive. It is motif. It's motif. A powerful motif in Indian mythology, art, and sculpture. Illustrate the symbolism of Yakshini Yaksh depiction. So, as you can see, the question requires you to actually deliver on 2 points. The first point, you have to first establish how Yakshini Yaksh is a symbol that remains a powerful motive, that is, it continues to be depicted in Indian mythology, art, and sculpture. Moreover, you have to illustrate with examples, obviously, the symbol that is the message that the depiction of Yakshini Yaksh conveys, that is the how this symbol is interpreted. Now, talking about the depiction of yakshas, what actually are yakshas and yakshinis for that matter? Yakshas constitute a broad class of nature spirits in Indian mythology. Some of them were even considered demigods, with the most prominent example being their chief Kuber, who is regarded the god of material wealth in India. So the point is, mostly the yakshas were considered minor deities who are often associated with some elements of nature. For an example, its vegetation, or for that matter, some of the important or mysterious geographical features. However, we have to also point out that sometimes these very yakshas were often depicted, sometimes they have been depicted in a more, you could say, darker light. They were sometimes considered malevolent spirits who would actually cannibalize on men, that is, they would eat human flesh. Anyway, the point is, yakshas appeared early on in Indian tradition, with both the great epics and Ramayana and Mahabharata mentioning them. So the point is, yakshas appeared just after the Vedic and Upanishadic period, that is, they have been depicted in the both the, you could say, great epics of India, that is in both the Ramayana as well as the Mahabharata. The popular Yaksha Prashna, you are almost certainly aware of this episode from the Mahabharata, can be considered a moral catechism, that is a moral question and answer. That is, this episode is structured as a moral question and answer between, as you know, the Yaksha and Yudhishthir. So it is, we can from these examples say that the as early as the epics, the yakshas and yakshinis appear in Indian mythology. Both the early Buddhist and Jain art prominently depict the yakshinis and yakshas. Each of the 24 Jain Tirthankar got associated with his Sasan Devata, who were guardians of the Tirthankar's doctrine, who are invariably Yakshini Yaksh pair. Some pair of Sasan Devata are Chakreshwari Gomukh for Bhagwan Rishabdev, who is considered the first Jain Tirthankar, or often called Bhagwan Adinath Ji also, and Padmavati Dharanendra for Bhagwan Parshvanath. So through these examples, we can see that the yakshas and yakshinis were depicted in Jain, you could say, art, mythology, etc., apart from the, you could say, Brahminical or Hindu mythology. In Buddhist contexts, yaksha motif merges with Shalabhanjika. We would repeat it. In the Buddhist context, yaksha motif often merges with Shalabhanjika, who is a yakshini generally, who is a yakshini breaking the twig of a sal tree. The Shalabhanjika signifies the blossoming forth of nature. We would repeat it, as we have pointed out that the yakshas were often considered nature spirits. The same functionality carries forward with Shalabhanjika. The Shalabhanjika signifies the blossoming forth or the blooming of nature. Also, recall that, as per tradition, Prince Siddharth had taken form under a sal tree. So the point is, the motif of Salbhanjika, who was initially a Yakshini, she also depicts the exact moment when Prince Siddharth was born. And as the tradition goes, Prince Siddharth was born under a sal tree. We would actually like to add here that the Salbhanjika motif is often conflated with Mahamaya Gautami, who is the Buddha's birth mother. Thus, Salbhanjika often depicted the auspicious moment, that is, exact moment of the masters or Bhagwan Buddha's birth. One of the representative specimens of modern art is the Didarganj Yakshini. The colossal sandstone statue bears the lustrous or glossy Mauryan polish. Both Sachi and Bharhut stupas have numerous Yakshini Yaksh depicted. The Bharhut depictions carry inscriptions with their names. So coming to the Mauryan period, where we have prominent examples of depiction of Yaksha and Yakshinis. One of the important specimen of Mauryan art is the Didarganj Yakshini, who was excavated from Patna, and this statue actually bears the glossy finish, the glossy polish that is often associated with the Mauryan period. Similarly, both the Sachi and Bharhut stupas have numerous, you could say, examples of depiction of Yakshini and Yakshas. The Bharhut depictions, apart from the eventual depiction, also carry inscriptions with the names of the Yaksha and Yakshinis. Then coming to Kushana art, Kusan art also continued the practice of depicting Yakshas. An example from this period, or maybe slightly earlier, is the Yaksh statue from Parkham near Mathura. You are almost certainly aware, please recall that Mathura art is often associated with the mature period of Kushana art in India. This statue, that is the Parkham Yaksh statue, bears Brahmi inscription that says it represents Yaksh Manibhadra, who is worshipped by traders, who was worshipped by traders and travelers for protection during voyages. So again, this also drives the point that the Yakshas were often considered minor deity themselves. That is, they are considered gods who presided over some functions. Here, in this case, the Yaksh Manibhadra is also considered a deity who was worshipped by the traders and travelers for protection during long voyages, the long journeys. Then coming to the depiction of Kubera, who is often considered the chief of Yakshas. Depiction of Kubera too is rich in symbolism. The deity, that is Kubera, has as his Vahan or mount a man, which, as you can understand, what it would signify, what it would convey, that how wealth takes over the psychology of man, how wealth takes over man. With this point is depicted by the typical statue of Kubera, who is shown mounting on the shoulder of a man. So you can also connect it with the rather well-known point that most of the deities in Indian context have their vahanas, but most of the deities have for their vahan some particular animal. But in the case of Kubera, it's a person, it's a man. What it signifies probably that wealth takes over the psychology of man. Then the 6th to 8th century Badami caves, Chalukyan period, to have many examples of Yaksha depiction, which would point to popularity of Yaksh motif in South India as well. So we can say with some confidence that by 6th to 8th century, if not earlier, the practice of depiction of Yakshas and Yakshinis had permeated to deep south as well. In this case, Karnataka, the Chalukyan period, Karnataka. Now coming to more modern times, Yakshas. Yaksha's association with prosperity was the motive behind Ram Kinkar Bad's well-known sculpture that adorned the entrance of Reserve Bank of India, head office, Delhi. The Yakshini, in this depiction, the Yakshini carries a sheaf of paddy, which you can understand symbolizes the fertility of the land, that is India, and the Yaksha carries a discus chakra in a style of a modern machine gear, a symbol of industrial progress. So you can understand in the case of Ram Kinkar Bad's statuary, what this signifies, that the depiction of the Yakshini in this case signifies the fertility of the land, which is very important, you could say, a factor for productivity of the land, for the prosperity of the land. Moreover, the Yaksha is depicted here carrying a discus, which is shaped like a modern machine gear, which would signifies the modernity, the prosperity that would be brought by the industrial revolution for that matter. So with this we would end today. We would reassemble for the next lecture in a few days. As usual, we wish you all the best. Thank you.